This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, teaching influencers and bloggers how to become successful entrepreneurs. This is episode 124 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today I'm talking to Stefanie Gass, and we're going to be talking about tips for starting a podcast. So this is obviously a topic that I feel like is becoming more and more relevant, especially after attending Everything Food Conference and listening to Pat Flynn talk about the statistics on podcasting. That, of course, when it comes to social media, most audience, most listeners, or most followers only pay attention to something, read something for a matter of seconds. But when it comes to podcasting, they are spending hours binging your content. So if you've wondered about whether or not a podcast is right for you or how to even go about getting started, this is the episode for you. So let's dive in. All right. Welcome, Stefanie. How are you?
Hi, Jenny. I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. I would love it if you could introduce yourself as well as your business to my audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Stefanie. I have two little boys under 5.5. So, pray for me. It's crazy up in here. I live right outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the mountains out there. And I am just an entrepreneur through and through. I run a female empowerment, female educator business. I run a podcast. I have courses for women, helping them discover what their calling is and then monetize it through ebooks, courses, podcasting. And just so you know a little bit about me, I'm at 3 on the Enneagram, so I'm an achiever. I'm a go-getter. I drink too much coffee, and I don't think that's a problem, right?
Absolutely not. We'll get along great, believe me.
Exactly. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
All right, excellent. So now, your online journey, where did it kind of start? Because I'm always really curious how people get into it. I have so many listeners that I think kind of stumbled upon blogging and started doing it more as a hobby than anything else. What about you? Where did your journey start?
So my journey started about 7 years ago. As an entrepreneur, at least, I had just gotten laid off from my corporate job, which I had been making 6 figures. I had climbed the corporate ladder. I actually have a master's in accounting. And at the time, I just got married. We were ready to have kids. So my mom came to me. She's like, hey, I'm going to join this network marketing business. Do you want to do it with me? I think like so many women with families, you're like, oh, network marketing, that's the answer. And so I jumped in. And when I jump into something, I'm all in and went crazy. Within 2 years, I had hit the top 1% of the company. I had a $17,000 month. I mean, it was like I had made it. You could check all the boxes, the free cars, the bonuses, but it wasn't automated, right? It wasn't passive. I was working 60 hours a week to maintain this lifestyle we had built. It was at the expense of everything, Jenny. Like my family was the back burner. I had gained 60 pounds by my second child. I was eating processed pretzels while on the phone. I literally had that earpiece like attached to my head. If I could have glued it on, like.
Yes, I totally understand.
Right. So that went on for 4 years until the business started to crumble. And it was so crushing to me because my whole identity had been wrapped up in this business. I found my worth at that time in monetary success. And I thought that's what's defining my worth. So it was really this kind of reckoning for me. And this crossroads of what am I going to do? Am I going to start over and keep building this and keep working so hard? Or am I going to branch out and see if there's this different call in my heart? So strangely enough, I always feel like it's divine intervention. The right people were led to me. I took literally the last $200 because cash flow problems started to happen. The business was crumbling, right? Took the last $200 in the PayPal account that my husband didn't know about. All my friends know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And I met with a mentor, and this person simply asked me, it was the most basic conversation. They're like, Steph, what is it that you love about network marketing? I'm like, well, I love the female empowerment. I love helping women conquer their fears and find achievement and automate their systems and realize that they can have it all, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. They don't have to feel like a failure in one way or one of the areas of their life. And they're like, why don't you coach and help women entrepreneurs? I'm like, duh. So that's how Success with Stefanie was born, which is in essence this coaching business that has evolved. And I actually started with a lifestyle blog. And 6 months into that, Reckitt was like, oh, this doesn't really feel like the right fit. So I started transitioning into YouTube, too businessy. I have kids. I can't be doing my makeup every day. Like, let's get real. So then I'm like, okay, it's Facebook Lives. Start going on Facebook Lives. And that's where I started to gain traction. I started to get a lot of customers. I started to figure out what courses made sense for people. And around, 8 months ago, I kind of had been at this crossroads. I'm like, this is growing too slow. I'm pouring all these hours into content creation, and I'm working so hard to grow this following in this community and scale, because I know people are loving my courses, but it's the same 15 people buying all my stuff. So that's when I just let go and I was like, just show me what's next. And I woke up one morning and I literally had this idea planted in my heart. I'm going to start a podcast. And it changed everything. My community exploded by thousands. Revenue went up by 98% within 6 months. And, that's when I was able to really hit a large following of people with one voice and repurpose all that content everywhere. A blog, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So that's kind of how the entrepreneurial journey has gone and evolved for me.
Okay. So now when you say you're repurposing content, so you're taking a podcast episode, then using it maybe for Facebook as a video or YouTube, how are you repurposing it when you say that?
Yeah. So when you record a podcast, like Jenny and I are sitting here now, we're on Zoom. And so we actually have a video going and I can see Jenny's beautiful face. She can see my mom bun and it's recording. So the beauty of this is when we're finished, not only do we have an MP3, which is now used for the podcast, we also have an MP4 file, which is used for YouTube and upload into Facebook. If we were doing this in portrait mode or we went in and rejiggered the file a little bit, we can also put it up into Instagram TV. And we could transcribe this episode for like $10 on Fiverr and use it as a blog post. I mean, it's like quadruple whammy with half an hour of our time.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly, I talk to my audience often about not reinventing the wheel. It's so important, being moms, being business owners, to find time where you can have it, but to be able to, like you said, reuse the content so that it can work for you in multiple ways. Because then you're driving traffic, whether it's from Pinterest or Facebook to that blog post. There's just so much that you can actually do with it. I love that. So important. So now, why do you feel like podcasting was such a great way for you to connect with your community and allow you to continue to grow it? What was about it that kind of like made that soar forward?
Absolutely. So here's the deal about my community. I'm speaking to the mompreneur, in essence, the female entrepreneur. And so this human being, like, I know her so well because she's me. Like, we are just kind of a hot mess. We're doing laundry, we're doing dishes, and we're listening to, podcasts. We're consuming our information audibly. And so when you recognize who it is that you're marketing to, you have to look at how is that person consuming information. And I feel like this female demographic, anywhere between 25 and 40, they are listening. They are no longer reading. They are no longer even watching YouTube videos. And I saw this emerging trend and I started to dig into it. And the stats were crazy, Jenny. It was like over 30% a year, audio is growing. Podcasting is exploding. It's got this second wave. And so I felt like, oh my gosh, if women can experience what I've experienced in their business and start using audio to grow their community and following faster, because it's exploding anyway, you may as well get your foot in while you can. And so once I did that, the beauty was it was confirmed. These mompreneurs were like, oh, Steph, I was in your Facebook group and I loved your posts, but until I heard your podcast, I couldn't really dig into who you are. And now I'm binge listening to your show. All of a sudden they're buying all my stuff because they're like, they know me, they trust me, they're hearing me every single week. And it's speaking to their heart in a much bigger way than my writing ever could.
I love the way that you mentioned the word binging, because this research is showing, I actually spoke a podcast movement last year, and the research even then was showing that people are consuming so much more content when it comes to a podcast, because if they won't just listen to one episode, they'll binge through and watch or listen to multiple. Whereas if you were to go to look at Instagram stories or YouTube, the time that they actually spend on that content is so much less. So I love the way that you described the whole binging, because that's absolutely what we're seeing.
And, too, on that note, Jenny, it's also evergreen, because you can go out and you put out a content post, it's dead in 24 hours, right? Like nobody's liking the stuff I put out last week necessarily. A video, same thing because of the algorithms, but a podcast, it lives there forever. Even if you stop podcasting today, people are going to go to your show and they're going to be like, ooh, I love this chick. And even if it's from 2 years ago, they're going to binge listen to everything. So it's like this evergreen residual community builder that works for you.
Yes. Now, jumping into a podcast, when do you feel like people are ready to start their own podcast? Is there a time that's perfect, or what do you think?
Yeah, yesterday. Like yesterday. Like I want you guys to start the podcast before you're ready. I want you to jump, because here's what happened to me. I created the courses first because I saw the problems that we needed, and I had this group. And like I had already mentioned, I tried everything. I spent thousands on Facebook ads thinking this is how you grow a community. And it was fine for a while. And I made money, and it was great. And it was fun. But when I started the podcast, I realized, oh, snap, it's actually build the community, pour value, give away free stuff, speak to people's hearts, and give away your best stuff. And that's when you start selling like crazy. So even if you have nothing to sell, if you have a brand of you and your mama, you launch that podcast, because that's how you're going to get your voice into the world. And that's how people are going to start to trust you. And so the number one question I ask when someone's like, Steph, I want to start a podcast. I hear what you're saying, but I have no idea what to do, what I should speak about, what it should be on. I first ask them, okay, what are your zones of genius? What are you so lit up about? Is there one or two things that you could just do it all day if nobody was paying you? And they always have that answer, Jenny. It's like, ooh, being a mom or adoption. I had someone recently tell me that she's so obsessed with adoption. I'm like, hey, is there an adoption podcast? I don't know, but you could totally start one and kill it in that niche. Maybe they're like, I'm so obsessed about my network marketing business. Cool. Start a network marketing podcast. Like there is every opportunity for you to get on there and have a platform to speak about a specific topic that lights you up. So answer to your question is start it yesterday. Do not wait.
Right. Yes. No, I can totally see what you're saying too. And the interesting part when it comes to podcasters is that if someone actually, they don't want just one, they want multiple episodes, but also if you can find someone that has a community and tie into that community as well, they want to be consuming as much content as possible on that topic, I think is the main thing, right? So
whether you're a seasoned podcaster or just thinking of starting a podcast, you need to listen to Buzzcast from the folks at Buzzsprout. Here we go! Buzzcast covers everything a podcaster should know, from marketing strategies and how to make money from your podcast to the latest and greatest tech and industry insights to keep you on the cutting edge. Follow Buzzcast by clicking the link in the description or go to buzzcast.buzzsprout.com and keep podcasting.
absolutely.
Yeah. Like as an example on that, Jenny, so that they can kind of visualize, I had someone call me and she's like, I'm a realtor and I want to grow my Instagram. That's how I'm going to grow my following. And I was like, ooh, no. Instagram is like, it's important, granted, but it's so slow, guys, period, end of story. Believe me, I know I've grown it for 7 years. And so I told her, start a podcast, go on there, talk about first-time home buying steps, mortgage rates, what's an escrow, transitioning from renting to buying, what you need to know to protect yourself as a buyer. And her, like, the light bulb went off and she's like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense because all these people are going to trust me before they hire me. She can create these relationships with realtors in other states and get a kickback when she refers her listeners to them. And it was like, oh, it made just such perfect sense. So anything that you do, and people are going to go and say, oh, I'm about to buy a house. I found this podcast. They're going to listen to all 50 of her episodes in a weekend, and they're going to hire her.
Now, what was your biggest struggle, would you say, with podcasting? Because I know that that's what people are thinking. Like, what is the holdup though, right? What's going to hold them back from leaping?
Couple things. So of course the how always holds us back. You're like, this sounds so cool. Steph and Jenny can do it. So can I. And you totally can. But here's the thing. You're going to go, but how? And you're going to go to Google just like I did. And you're going to get so overwhelmed. This is what happened to me. I'm like, there's a million options for equipment, a million options for hosting. Then people start freaking out because it's like, I interview. Well, what questions would I ask? Like, editing? I have to edit? What does this mean? So it's the overwhelm. That's the number one hurdle you're going to face. And that's actually why I created my course. And I just found that there was no resource out there that was all in one to teach me how to take my idea, create a podcast, where to host, what equipment that we needed, then how to monetize the show. That was really overwhelming to me. And then finally, pairing sales and marketing with it. Like I want to have a platform, but I need to make money from it.
Right.
So that was first. And then the second one was understanding it's a long game. This is a hurdle for people. They want overnight success. And I did too, believe me. But nothing that you ever do in your entire life, don't ever believe the lies someone might tell you. You can be an overnight success if you do this. No, total BS. You have to have the long view. And podcasting is going to create such a platform for you if you give it enough time to grow and you market it in the right way. So also understanding it's not going to be an overnight success story. Maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes a decade, but there's no way that podcast will not grow your community.
Yes, we always refer to it as it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And everything you're going to do is going to lead towards that of growing that community and giving an opportunity to engage them. And I think podcasting really gives you that chance to put your voice behind it. It was interesting because last year I was at a conference and I asked a question in the audience. And as I got to go to walk out to go use the restroom or go to the next session, two girls stopped me and they said, the second you started talking and asking your question, we recognize your voice from your podcast. And it's that connection that people are able to make with your voice, whether they can see you or not, but just the voice and knowing your mannerisms. And if they can learn from you and connect to your beliefs. Like you talk about, it was on your heart. People connect to that and they're going to know whether that's the right fit for them or not based upon the conversations that they're listening to, as well as the trainings that you're doing with them. So important.
I agree. And that too, it filters out the people you don't want to work with. Because someone might listen to my show, which is a Christian-based, business and balance podcast. They may go, oh, no, like Steph is too much for me. And I'm like, good. I actually had someone be like, oh, I hate it. It's way too religious. I'm like, great, bye. Because I don't, you know what I mean? Like you want to work with the people you want to work with. And so having a podcast, it's going to attract your avatar and the people that are meant to work with you. And it's going to repel the people that you don't actually want to work with.
Yes, because those are the people that you're going to end up wasting time on anyways. That they're never going to truly understand where you're trying to drive them to. So being able to talk about repelling them, so smart. Yes. So now you actually have a quiz that my audience can take. We're going to link to it in the show notes, but you can walk us through like what the quiz is about, what it'll kind of help them decide upon.
Yeah. So I think when people hear this episode, they're going, could I podcast? Like, could this help me grow my blog? Could this help me grow my community? And so I think the first step for people is to see, is podcasting really for me? And so I created a quiz. It's super short, it has 10 questions, and it really walks you through kind of the personality styles that are right for podcasting, the commitment, the time that you might need to spend doing it. So I have that quiz, and Jenny will link to it in the show notes. You can take that and see, would podcasting be right for me? And then the second step, once you get your results, there's 3 options. It's girl, no, podcasting isn't for you. And I'm honest about that because it's not for everybody. But then the second one is you could be a great casual podcaster. This would be somebody that they're using it to build the blog. It's not the end all be all. And maybe you're doing a 15-minute episode once a week. Great. You don't have to go crazy here, you guys, but it's in my opinion, so smart to cover this platform. Then the final one is you're ready to be a podcast pro. And this is somebody like Jenny and I, it's a really big part of our business model. And so whether you are a casual podcaster or a full-time potential podcaster, I have then a 45-minute training that can take you through 10 steps to starting a podcast. And that will walk you through all of the things. How do you monetize one? How do you start one? How much time does it really take? It really answers all those burning questions for you about what does it take to get started? And Jenny will link that for you as well. And we've set up a special offer for Jenny's listeners. If you end up wanting to take a look at my course, you get a really special bundle offer price. And that's only through Jenny's link. Okay.
Yes, we will make sure to link to that in the show notes so that you guys can take advantage of that. Because honestly, I think the overwhelm that you talked about as far as Googling everything to try to figure out how do I start my podcast, that was exactly me. And I think the first episode literally took me 8 hours to do it on a Saturday. Like it was such torture because I was trying to Google this and what do I do with this and which equipment, such a mess. So this is the resource that I absolutely needed. So excited about this.
Yes, me too. Me too. I was just everywhere, all over the map. And I did find a couple of other courses, but they were by men and they didn't have the marketing aspect in there or the sales aspect or the monetization. It was just, this is how you start one by. Yes. And I knew, if I have this mind for marketing and sales, I'm going to pair that in the course and teach women maybe how you can have this ebook and link that into your blog, into your podcast, and really expand on it. And so that it's an all-encompassing resource.
I love it. Now, Steph, where are the best places to find you as far as social media? Because my people are all about going through and making sure that they're following you wherever you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So come say hey. I'm on Instagram at Stefanie Gass, and that's Stephanie with an F. And then my last name is Gass. You can find me on my website, stephaniegass.com. All things are on my site, my handles, my freebies, my gifts for you. So yeah, that's how you can find me, and definitely come say hi.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to let us in, talk about podcasting, because I see it as it's the new way to be able to get in front of a larger audience that is only continuing to grow.
I agree. Guys, at least take the quiz. See if it might be for you, okay?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jenny. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Well, there you have it. If you are interested in finding out more information about podcasting, make sure that you click through to the show notes and you can click over to find out more about the course that Stefanie has created on getting started on podcasting. I know I wish that there had been a resource when I had started my podcast. I will tell you that my first episode took me, 10 hours to complete because I was taking bits and pieces from all the different information that is out there. There was nothing that I could find that was quite all in one place. So if you are interested in starting a podcast and what it might look like, make sure that you definitely check her course out. I appreciate you all so much for taking the time for listening in. I'd love to see you take a screenshot where you are listening to the podcast, whether you are not obviously driving, but whether you're out for a walk for the dog or listening while the kids, whatever it might be, and just tag me on Instagram at Jenny_Melrose. I appreciate you all so much for taking the time to do that. And if you leave a review, make sure that if you leave a review on iTunes that you use your Instagram handle, because I am sending everyone that leaves me a podcast review a little something in snail mail. So use your Instagram handle so that I can then get in touch with you to find out your address. And I will see you all next time.